Hey, welcome back. This is Mike from Music City, and this is going to be our fifth installment of Ranking Records. Today, we are going to do a band that I just absolutely love, different from the first four in the fact that I didn't follow this band from the very beginning. I caught them somewhere in the middle, and so forgive me for that, but I did go back and explore the previous albums and get to know and love them, but just a little different than, kind of going through the whole stage with the band. And that band today is Minneapolis' own The Replacements. And as Replacements fans love to call them, the Mats. So I'll probably call them the Mats more than I will call them the Replacements. And in case you don't know, the name Replacements sometimes sounds like you're saying placemats, so we gave them the Mats. But there are 7 studio albums by the Replacements that I'm going to put in order of how I like them. And, some of the feedback I got from the previous ones is the phrase worst album. And I kind of get it. So we'll call it, and we'll start with the least favorite working up to the favorite, and we'll go through the 7 albums. But the first album that I put as my least favorite is Sorry Mom, I Forgot to Take Out the Trash, which actually is their first album. And we're going to lump something in with this, the EP, The Replacements Stink, which came out pretty close to this. And the reason these are my least favorite, at the time, this was a very different band from what The Replacements evolved into. They were pretty much, let's say it as it was, they were a hardcore punk band at the time. And it's just not what I was ever into, not what I cared for much about. There's some good songs in here, don't get me wrong, and what was very interesting on what is the reunion tour and the last times that the Replacements did tour, strangely enough, they opened up their set with several of these, songs from those days. And to me, the disappointment was I actually got to see their next to last show at the Roundhouse in London, and got in there really early, was standing right in the front of the rail there, and I was so excited. And when they started doing these wilder songs, I mean, the slamming into the front of the stage by these young kids, I had to leave for my own safety. It was, I felt like a real old man, but that's, to me, it's not what the band is really about anymore. And it was fun to hear them do that, but the reaction of the crowd was just a little too much for me to handle. But anyway, so that's where we started off. And, let's get it out of the way. The elephant in the room, the Replacements in their early days, and most of their career sure did a lot to, try to ruin their career the best they have. And if you really want to read about that story about the Replacements, this book by Bob Muir called The Trouble Boys is just fantastic. Really talks about the band, and and it's a really sad story. Drugs and alcohol, and just being mean to people, being rude, and just being a horrible live band, sort of on purpose, not finishing songs. And some of those shows are legendary for how bad they were. But I never got to see any of those, so I only can speak to you what I read about. But you do get the feeling after reading this book that had they tried to have a normal career, they really would have achieved a really fantastic level of success, much more than they actually have. But where they evolved, to me, is one of the best American bands that there ever been, and a lot of that is the genius songwriting of their leader, Paul Westerberg, and was also the lead vocalist. And not to slag on the rest of the band too, and we'll probably talk to them about them as we go through. But so let's move on back to the records. The second from the bottom was the follow-up album after Sorry Ma, I Forgot to Take Out the Trash, and that's Hootenanny. And the band started to explore some different styles on this record. It's got one of their classic songs on here, Color Me Impressed. A good record with some good songs. You could see the direction that they were going into. I guess back then we called it alternative rock, and they certainly were in the forefront of that. Hootenanny's a great album, but, they were still developing into where I think they really hit their peak. Now, at least 5 albums, and I got to tell you something, ranking these 5 albums for me was extremely difficult. And I know this is where we're going to get into a lot of collective disagreement. To me, all 5 of these albums are just fantastic. I love each and every one of them, and it really took me some pain to try to differentiate them. But so 5 from the bottom, again, in my opinion, all 5-star records. We're going to go with the band's last album, All Shook Down. For all practical purposes, the band had fallen apart at this time, and this was pretty much a Paul Westerberg solo record, although the entire band at the time did appear on the record. But just some fantastic songs. I mean, one of my favorites is Nobody, Attitude. Just a really great record. I saw the band quite frequent on this tour. They opened up for Elvis Costello, who was one of my favorite artists, and I got to see 3 shows, including a great one at Madison Square Garden, of all places, where Elvis and their replacements sold out Madison Square Garden. And what I remember fondly from that night is they came out to do the song Hootenanny as their final song, and they all were in different positions. I think Westerberg was playing drums, and they all switched around. It was kind of funny. And I think when they did their very final show at Grand Park in Chicago, before the reunion, that is, I think they did the same song, and they wound up being where they all left the stage and were replaced by roadies, and it was actually roadies that finished the set, so that was kind of cool. 4th from the bottom, Don't Tell a Soul. Actually, the album that was out when I first saw the Replacements live. I saw great shows in Austin and in Phoenix, and really made me a big fan of the band. And now, one of the things about this record, I know a lot of some of the fans. Let's not characterize everybody. Some of the fans don't like this album much. They didn't like the production. We'll talk about that again when we go through some of the other releases after the studio ones. But I mean, the songs on here are just fantastic. I mean, the song Aching to Be, just a perfect pop song, one of my favorite songs of all time. I guess the big hit that got the most airplay was I'll Be You. Again, very great, well-written and well-sung and played pop songs. Talent Show, just what a fantastic song that is. And if you look on my blog, I've got a link to, under my videos column, of a great version. They did this on an actual talent show, one of these music award shows, and it was just true Replacements live style. It was great. So that's my 4th album, Don't Tell a Soul. Now, number 3, we're going to go with Let It Be. And again, what a fantastic record. And I know a lot of you are going to have this as your favorite Replacements record, and I can't disagree with you. But just starting off with the great Peter Buck guitar riffs on I Will Dare. I mean, just seeing that song live on the reunion tour just would drive me crazy. It's just such a really great song. Unsatisfied, Answering Machine, Paul showing, really kind of a really laid-back, mellow, sensitive side. Just fantastic stuff. I should make comment that all of the CDs in my collection are the reissues that came out with bonus tracks, and I really recommend getting those. Second from the top, again, I would be willing to bet a lot of you have this as your number 1 Replacement album, and that is Tim. Again, what a fantastic record. It's got one of the best rock anthems of all time, Bastard of Young. It's got their ode to college radio, Left of the Dial. Again, sensitive Westerberg with Here Comes a Regular and Kiss Me on the Bus. Just a great record. Well, if you're a fan of the Mats, you know what number 1 is. And I don't know how many of you will have this as number 1. And again, this is one of the ones that this was, I believe, the first one that I actually bought. Right when it came out. I remember buying it the day it came out at Sound Warehouse Records in San Antonio, Texas. And I remember the kid at the counter telling me, "Man, what a great album you got, dude." And his favorite song was the lead-up track, IOU, which is a great song. And this is Pleased to Meet Me. I'm sorry. But, I mean, it's got, was recorded in Memphis, produced by Jim Dickinson. Alex Chilton, the hero of, musical hero of Paul Westerberg, former member of Big Star. They got the song to him, Alex Chilton, "Children by the Million," "Scream for Alex Chilton." Just a fantastic record, and it's got my favorite Replacement song of all time, and probably a song that's in my top 10 favorite songs of all time, and that's "Can't Hardly Wait." Just what a fantastic song, you know. Very minimal lyrics, but just to the point. Just a great melody. The horns as they kick in, it's just fantastic. I love it. So my favorite Replacements record is "Pleased to Meet Me." So that covers the top 7. We didn't really talk about the band members. You know, in the original band, you had Bob Stinson on guitar and his brother, his young kid brother Tommy Stinson on bass, and you had the drummer Chris Mars. Bob eventually was, say, kicked out of the band for his excessive drinking and problems, replaced by Slim Dunlop, who around the time of the "Don't Tell a Soul" record, and he toured for on the "Pleased to Meet Me" tour, I believe. And Slim, unfortunately, has had some health issues, and we'll touch on that in a second. And Tommy went on to actually be the bass player in Guns N' Roses. And a little tidbit to mention to you, I actually saw Tommy play here in Franklin, Tennessee, where I live, a while back at a record store. And it was a very small affair, and we were actually helping him carry his equipment out to the car after the show, after he did a little meet and greet. And I said, shoot, you know, here's my chance. And I said, Tommy, I said, are we going to see Paul again? And the reaction I got for him was rather abrupt. He immediately stopped, put down the guitar case he was handling, and stared me in the face and said, why don't you go ask him? So I didn't know what to read into that, but it's been quite some time since that last reunion show, and we've all been waiting for the Mets to get back together live, and hopefully that'll be something we get to see. I really do want to see them play again before I call it a day. And the Replacements on the last tour was Westerberg and Tommy Stinson. They added a new guitarist and a drummer. And actually, the one show that I saw at the Forecastle Festival, one of the shows that I saw was at the Forecastle Festival, Joe Armstrong from Green Day actually played back up on guitar, which was really kind of interesting. I'm not much of a Green Day fan, but hey, what the heck, he sounded pretty good. But let me throw a couple other tidbits at you, since this one was a little shorter than usual. As I mentioned, I think in one of our previous ranking records, I'm a big fan of the 33 1/3 series of books. They're little tiny books I can carry on the airplane and read. But here's one that came out on the Let It Be record, and it was written by Colin Meloy of the Decemberists. Now, I am not going to recommend this to you if you're a Replacements fan, because it's more about the story of young Colin Meloy and how he discovered the Replacements and what this album meant to him. And at the end, he crams in a few pages about the actual record. If you're a Decemberists fan, you need to read this. If I was a Replacement fan, I wouldn't run wild and get it. Now, you know, we are going to do some, you know, things on collecting records later on. I've got an idea for another series. But for now, just real quick, we'll run through some of these other Replacements collectibles you want to get. There was a promo EP called Don't Buy or Sell It's Crap that you might want to get. It's got a few rare tracks on there. And then they came out with a live promo, Incarcerated, that was from a Milwaukee concert on the Don't Tell a Soul tour. What was really great about this at the time, it got you a version of their Another Girl, Another Planet that they did live. It was a song by the band The Only Ones. We'll talk about this recording again in a minute. Then we got into some collections here. Here was one called All for Nothing, which had sort of greatest hits, and then it had a bunch of rare bonus tracks. I apologize, I haven't gone to compare these to the the bonus tracks that came out on the reissues to see whether you need this or not. But then there was another follow-up greatest hits, and the big thing about this one, this did have 2 new songs on it. Message to the Boys, and I can't remember, Pool and Dive. So get this for those new songs. And then finally, on the CD side here, they did release this 1986 show on Rhino a couple of years back from Maxwell's in Hoboken. Great stuff. This was a great night for the band. It's a great show. I highly recommend you get this. Two more things, a little bigger size. We mentioned Slim Dunlap, the guitarist in the band from Don't Tell a Soul On, being ill, and what the band did was they did a benefit record for him called Songs for Slim. And I didn't open it. I don't know why I haven't opened this. I know I did do the download card. I have it on my iPod. But five songs from the Replacements here. I believe everyone is on. Well, Tommy is on here with Paul, and I know Chris Mars, the original drummer, was not on the record, but I believe he did the artwork. I think that's the connection here. But this is kind of cool. Typical Westerberg style. You've got some really cool things on here. He does a song called "I'm Not Saying," which is a Gordon Lightfoot song that's just fantastic. And it made me buy the Gordon Lightfoot version. It's such a good song. And also he does one of a show tune done by Ethel Merman. I think it's from Gypsy. Everything's Coming Up Roses. So fun, and there's some regular rockin' tracks on there as well too. Which brings us to one more thing. The most recent release by the Replacements. It seemed like it's every time around Christmas time it gets to be box set time, and we got a Replacements box this year called Dead Man's Pop. And we mentioned earlier about some of the fans maybe not liking the slick production of the Don't Tell a Soul record. Well, this contains the original mix of that record, and I know there's some people that prefer that mix better. Tell you the truth, I like them both. It's nice to have different sounding versions of songs that you know and love. In addition, though, this is a really nice package. We showed you that Incarcerated promo CD that just had, I think, 5 tracks on it. Here now we have that entire concert on 2 CDs, so we have an entire '89 concert now too, which is fantastic. And there is an entire disc of rare and unreleased tracks. So nice cool picture in here of the band. We'll pay him some tribute there by showing you everybody. So that's the Mats. Please, as always, I'd love to hear your comments. I'm sure that your choices may differ from mine. I thank you very much for the positive feedback I'm getting on these ranking records. This is the 5th. So please check out the channel on YouTube. Please, as we like to say, share and subscribe. We'd like to get more people involved watching these. Please give me suggestions on future categories. I mentioned I do want to do some more on collecting as well as ranking. And please check out my blog, musiccitymike.net. You'll find things written about the Replacements and quite a few other bands and a lot on the local Nashville music scene. So again, thanks for spending time with us today. Take care.